What is going on, you guys? Admiral here, and welcome back for another World of Warship video. Today I'm going to be cracking the myth between the Fuso and the Nagato. These two big ships are actually been questioning, and the big question is that is the Fuso better than the Nagato? Now I do have a lot of hours between these two ships. If you just look through my profile, I only play battleships, Japanese nation, and tier 6 and tier 7 definitely have a lot of hours. Now obviously I have more games with tier 6, and I can explain why. I make more coins with the Fuso than the Nagato simply because it's cheaper to repair the Fuso than the Nagato. But I want to get really in depth in terms of performance between these two ships, and the factors that they really show their strengths. So the characteristics with the Fuso. The obvious characteristic of the Fuso is having this huge ass pagoda mass, but no, honestly, the performance of these ships is that the Fuso has 6 main batteries, and having 6 main batteries allows the ship to be more versatile against cruisers and battleships alike. Having 6 batteries means that you have 12 shells going downrange compared to the Nagato. The Nagato only has 8, and it's similar to the Congo, but the Congo is actually a fast battleship or fast battle cruiser if you want to say it to be more technical, but the Nagato is only 2 knots faster than the Fuso, and it only has 8 batteries, so you're pretty big for a target. Now the Fuso, I will admit, the Fuso is much easier ship to use than the Nagato. When I first used the Nagato, it is a tough ship to use, especially when it's not upgraded. Not having any upgrades means that your cannons are very inaccurate. The dispersion is pretty ridiculous at times. I mean, I can't even calculate the amount of times that these 2 shells just split out of nowhere. I'm like wondering what the hell's going on. Like, how do they manufacture these turrets? I feel like the cannons turrets are literally split apart instead of the shell splitting apart. I don't question RNG. You never question RNG. But Fuso, having 6 main batteries and having 12 shells going down range can easily score you a citadel kill against a cruiser and land many shots and doing great deal amount of damage against battleships. So that's what makes the Fuso so special. It's literally like a glass cannon. Now the Nagato, it doesn't have that feature. It just simply doesn't. The only distinct feature you can see is that it has better secondaries. Now, what separates between the Fuso and the Nagato, which I personally noticed that, is that the Nagato have 16-inch cannons. The Fuso has 14-inch cannons, and this depends on the environment what you're going against. It really comes down to matchmaking. The Fuso is actually a better ship than the Nagato if you are in a tier 5 and tier 6 matchmaking. If you're in a Nagato, tier 5 and tier 6 is not that bad. You can actually contest against the Fuso, but the Fuso will get more consistent results because it has 6 main batteries. The Nagato is actually better than the Fuso if you're in a tier 7, tier 8, tier 9, tier 10 matchmaking because you have 16-inch cannons. The ability with having 16-inch cannons or 16-inch shells going down full salvo against those tier 8, tier 9, tier 10 battleships is that they actually penetrate and citadel the enemy more easily than having the Fuso, because the Fuso only has 14-inch cannons, and you can do so much with penetration with 14-inch cannons. You're almost like a cruiser at tier 8, tier 9, tier 10. Like, you just can't penetrate. Now you can do decent amount of damage, but most of your damage can only be dealt if you land a lot of shots downrange. I actually do get games with the Fuso where I'm in a tier 8, tier 9 matchmaking. Now the Fuso is definitely able to go against those tier 8, tier 9 matchmakings. Only problem is that you can't penetrate enemy armor, not that easily. Now you can definitely penetrate the cruiser armor without a doubt. I definitely love the Fuso when it comes to cruisers. I destroy cruisers with the Fuso more than the Nagato. But the Nagato, I also destroy a lot of cruisers from getting simple citadels. But I have a higher chance of landing citadel shot with the Fuso. So you do have a higher chance of landing shots with the Fuso. So the Fuso follows the idea of having quantity, and it does have really quality shots. I'll be honest with you, it's really accurate if you run the accuracy gunfire control system modification 1, which increases your accuracy, and upgrading the Fuso hull. Definitely you must upgrade it first. The first thing you want to grab on the Fuso is the hull upgrade. Now the Nagato, it is not like a glass cannon like the Fuso, because the Nagato is actually the first Japanese battleship to have real standard armor for a battleship. the Fuso have decent armor, but nothing compared to Nagato. The Nagato has much more armor, and the ability to have more armor is the less chance of getting Citadel. And now you also consider the fact that you gotta constantly armor angle your ship, and that's arguably also the same thing for the Fuso. But having 6 main batteries comes with a cost, and the cost is that you have 6 magazine rooms. The chance of getting detonated on the Fuso is probably the highest. I think the Fuso is one of the highest ships to get detonation for a battleship. I mean, there is the, what do they call, the Hatago. The Hatago is like a moving Citadel, like you easily detonate that ship. But the Fuso, you gotta be constantly worried about your ship being detonated, and the boiler room is combined with the magazine room right here. So the Citadel on the ship is humongous compared to the Izumo. I think the Izumo is actually a bigger Citadel in my opinion, simply because that you have 3 main batteries here, but that's not about the Izumo. Aside from the Izumo, the Fuso does have a huge Citadel, and the Nagato has better armor, a smaller Citadel, but less room for errors. So the Nagato is much higher skill cap than the Fuso. But the question is, which ship is better, theoretically? If you look through the stats with the Nagato and the Fuso, they don't differ that much. They probably by a difference of 5 to 10 points in terms of artillery, AA defense, maneuverability, survivability. If you let me just click on these two, you just take a look. They're not much of a difference. It kind of feels a little difference, but not a big difference. Now the Nagato do get a lot of health compared to the Fuso. Fuso only get like 57,000, but they're really close. The reality is, what I want to try to point out is, the Nagato is a skill-based ship. It is a tough ship to use, but when you give it to the hands of someone who's very, very experienced with the Nagato, it has more potential than the Fuso. And the only chance where the Fuso can contest against the Nagato is getting matchmakings of tier 5s and tier 6, because it doesn't matter what you shoot at with a tier 5 or tier 6, because that's where the Fuso belongs. You can penetrate any armor. But tier 7, tier 8, tier 9, you shouldn't be in that game with the Fuso, but I do get games with it, and the Fuso just starts to deviate in its ability to go against the enemy battleships. So other than that, I hope I clear up some ideas and opinions about the Nagato. I personally believe that these 2 ships are great, but the Nagato is the better ship, and it makes sense for a tier 7. It's just difficult to use, especially when you first start out with your first impression. The Nagato is really bad. Really bad. I mean, when you start with a stock Nagato, it's just horrible. But the Nagato, you gotta give credit, because Nagato is the first Japanese battleship to have decent armor, and the first Japanese battleship to have 16-inch cannons. I mean, 16-inch cannons is actually legitimately the first. Let me see. It says a little on the little tech tree. Let's see, her design was inspired by experience obtained during World War I. Nagato was advanced torpedo protection. She carried 410mm. Whoops. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I read something about the Nagato being the first. So you should be proud of having the Nagato. And I'll admit, I think the Fuso is much more fun to play than the Nagato. But at times, I just get really great moments with the Nagato. You just gotta get that hull upgrade and deal with it, and get this gun and fire control system. That is my best advice to get the Nagato working. The Nagato will not work as a stock ship. Other than that, these 2 ships are very close to each other, but the Nagato will outscale the Fuso. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I try to be as informative as I can, and as far as I know, the Nagato should be a respected ship. And the next time I see you guys on World of Warship, I will be talking to you guys about the German Tirpitz. Later, guys.